good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the webinar this evening. So my name is Hinal and I work in the Learning and Development team in the NPA. So it's my job to ensure that you, the member, are aware of the exciting opportunities to help you in what we would say is quite a turbulent time in pharmacy. So we're really excited and proud to have partnered with Skills for Pharmacy. If you don't know anything about them, you'll know everything you need to know by the end of the webinar. They're a trusted apprenticeship training provider and they specialise in pharmacy apprenticeships. So joining me from Skills for Pharmacy is the Managing Director, Amarjeet Singh, the Operations Director, Jamie Crinigan, and the Business Development Manager, Sarah Dempsey. Look at the overview for today. So you'll find out who Skills for Pharmacy are and their unique offer. You'll learn more about the courses on offer, the benefits of employing an apprentice. We'll have a Q&A session after the presentation, but do feel free to write questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So some of these you might find answered in the presentation as we go along. Otherwise, we'll try to get through as many of them as we can at the end. So yeah, you may have had an apprentice before, or you may have experienced the benefits. You may be here because you've heard about apprenticeships over the years, or you've heard how it's worked well for other colleagues in pharmacy, but never taken the plunge to hire an apprentice. All right, and if we want to go to Amarjeet.
Hi, Hinal. Thank you so much for those kind words. As Hinal has said, my name is Amarjeet and I'm the MD of Skills 4. I'd like to thank you all for attending this webinar. I'd like to particularly thank those pharmacists or pharmacy owners that are attending this webinar tonight, who have been at work from 9 o'clock this morning or before and finished at 6 o'clock or after. I feel your pain. I've done exactly the same today. On a Tuesday, my pharmacists attend an IP course. So those are the days that I keep my hand in it, so to speak. So thank you so much for coming in today. As you may well have guessed from my comments, I am a pharmacist, I'm a superintendent, I'm a pharmacy contractor. I have been so for 23 years, which means I've been a member of the NPA for 23 years. If I was to do a calculation, that's a lot of subs and fees that I pay to the NPA. However, I can genuinely say I feel very honoured and proud to be working alongside an association that I have considered for the last 23 years to be the voice of community pharmacy. If I'm just allowed a second or two to reflect on those 23 years that I've had in this sector, I would have to say that this is the most challenging time that I've ever known. I've been fortunate enough in the last 18 months or so to have worked alongside 300 plus contractors. And the general consensus is that these are the worst conditions that we've ever faced. We are good business people. We are organizations that have invested hundreds of thousands. I'm looking at the list of people who are attending tonight, and I know some of you have invested millions over the years in your businesses. So we need to find strategies and solutions to survive. And I genuinely believe apprenticeship is one of those strategies. Now, I'm not one of those training providers or working for one of those training providers that doesn't practice what I preach. In both my pharmacies, apart from the pharmacists, we run off pre-regs and apprentices. And hopefully, over the next 15 or 20 minutes, we can look at apprenticeship and we can see whether it's right for you as well. Could we go to the first slide, please? So, Skills for Pharmacy, who are we and what is our USP? Well, we're a national training provider. We've been going now 7 years. We predominantly work in the level 2 and level 3 standards in pharmacy. Very proud to say that our level 2 apprenticeship program was the first new standard course that was accredited by the General Pharmaceutical Council. We are 90% pharmacy based. We have contractors working for us, we have pharmacists working for us, we have technicians working for us, we have ACTs working for us, and as I said, 90% of our workforce is pharmacy based, and these are pharmacy people that love our sector. Our biggest USP, I believe, is an understanding of how would we want apprenticeship delivered in one of our pharmacies. I have used other programs. I've bought in private programs. I've sent people to colleges. I've had workbook after workbook sent to me. I've had e-learning sent to me. And I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted our learning to be tutor-led. We have enough to do in the pharmacy as pharmacists and pharmacy owners without having to reteach our learners. So Skills for Pharmacy has qualified, professional, registered individuals who all have teaching qualifications, but are pharmacy based. Could we go to the next slide, please? The two programs that we run are the Pharmacy Support Worker Level 2, which is a 12-month course, plus a 3-month endpoint assessment time period. We will talk more about that as we go along, and I'm sure in the Q&A, lots of questions will come regarding that. If you have a learner that's 16 to 18, there will be no fee to be applied. If your learners are 19 plus, then there is a requirement to make a £250 employer contribution. The other program that we run, which is an incredibly exciting program, is the new Integrated Pharmacy Technician Level 3 course. That's a 24-month program in accordance with the General Pharmaceutical Council's guidelines. And again, another 3-month assessment period. Once again, if you take somebody on, a candidate who is 16 to 18, there would be no cost. If you take somebody on 19 plus, there would be a £400 employer contribution to be made. That is a fraction of what it would cost to buy this program. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, if we look at the Pharmacy Support Worker program, our courses cover the counter and the dispensary. Now, we have an array of employers working with us. The majority of our community pharmacies really want the OTC course to be a fundamental component of our teaching, and indeed it is. But we also work with online pharmacies and distance providing pharmacies. Now, in those, hub and spoke, for example, in those, the OTC aspect of the course isn't required. And as such, what we try to do is an employer needs analysis at the very start to ascertain what are the key things that you guys want. The way we teach it is 2 hours fortnightly for delivery sessions. We have a state-of-the-art e-portfolio system, which will guide both you as employers and your apprentices through your off-the-job learning. Again, we can talk about that, particularly in the Q&As. And you will be required to do 4 hours of work-based learning. And again, that's something that we can go through. For this particular standard, no formal entry requirements are preset. Your learner may need to do some functional skills, but we will support them right the way through their journey on that. Next slide, please. Now this is the, oh, sorry, could we go back slightly? Wonderful, thank you. This is the pharmacy technician course. Now this is an incredibly exciting course. 2 years ago, the General Pharmaceutical Council brought out the new integrated course. So the learners now who qualify, and we have just had our first cohort qualify are not just technicians, they become ACTs. Now, these are game changers. All of us in pharmacy, as contractors, are bombarded by people and organizations saying, we need to find new income streams. We need to provide new services. I have seen today, working in a very busy dispensary, that with the checking that needs to be done, you're pretty much tied to that dispensing bench. The ACTs will open that up. And we can talk more about that as we go through this webinar. Now, the delivery of this course, again, is 2 hours weekly. Now, these are mandatory. In addition to that, there is 4 hours of assignments that will be work-based. Again, our state-of-the-art e-portfolio system will guide the learner and the employer through what is required and the deadlines for those. In accordance with the General Pharmaceutical Society's, shows my age there, the General Pharmaceutical Council's requirements, learners must have English and Maths 4 and above, or the equivalent to enroll, and science is recommended. If the learner doesn't, we do have support tutors in place, which is chargeable, unfortunately, to get them to the stage where they could enroll. And indeed, we are doing that currently with several employers. Next slide, please. Okay, our offer to NPA members, or you could put on that slide, our offer to my fellow members. The first thing that we can say is that we have absolute nationwide coverage. We currently have employers and apprentices as far south of Penzance and as far north as Newcastle. Our courses are targeted to the standard. There is no bolt-on requirement. Many friends of mine, many colleagues of mine, have had phone calls from other training providers talking about customer service, retail, business admin. These courses will not allow that individual to work in the pharmacy. To work in the pharmacy, you have to have a GPHC approved course. Our level 2 course is a GPHC approved course. There is no requirement for any additional courses. As I stated earlier, our training is first class. We look at the needs of the learner, we look at the needs of the employer, and everybody in our delivery team has a pharmacy background, whether that be pharmacist, ACT, technician, and we can bespoke our training accordingly. There is not a one-size-fits-all at Skills 4. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so what's the benefits of employing an apprentice? Why do I do it? Why have I got apprentices in both of my pharmacies at level 2, level 3, and others that have progressed into education? Well, first of all, recruitment costs are sky high at the moment. We do all the recruitment for you. We will find your apprentice. We will look to your requirements and try and find someone that matches up to you. There are grants available. If you find a learner who is 16 to 18, an apprentice who is 16 to 18, there is a £1,000 grant available to you during the duration of the apprentice's learning. In terms of, this is an area, reducing staff turnover and improving staff satisfaction, that I've seen over the years, colleagues of mine have seen over the years. We are in a sector where the average age is increasing, and we need to bring in new blood. A lot of people think that by increasing the training, there's a higher chance of them leaving you. It's converse. The more you train them, the more you empower your staff, the better the chances of them being retained and the better the benefits for your business. When we've asked the 300 plus employers that we've surveyed over the last 18 months, at least 75 to 80% of them have said that they've had positive outcomes, not just from the apprentice, but the effect that it's had on their business as well. And of course, there is a saving on staffing costs. Now, anybody who earns less than £827 per week and is under the age of 25 is exempt from Class 1 NI charges. The apprenticeship rate is £4.81 per hour. We at Skills 4, as guidance, suggest that you pay around the £6 per hour mark. Now, that is just guidance. What I would say is that every sector outside of pharmacy is looking at apprentice, and the best candidates go quickly. So our studies, our surveys have shown that targeting around the £6 per hour mark produces a better caliber of apprentice. Next slide, please. So what do we want? What do we want from you, rather? This is a two-way process. In fact, it's a three-way process. It's a tripartite agreement between the learner, the training provider, hopefully us, and of course, the most important, the employer. Well, we would ask that at progress reviews, which are mandatory throughout the learner's training, these are at 8 and 12 weeks, that you partake, that you are there and you make yourselves available, that we get your input in how this learner is progressing. Every learner who is on our programs will require an educational supervisor. That educational supervisor must be registered with a general pharmaceutical council. In other words, they must either be a pharmacist or a technician. We will supply training, we will supply guidance on the roles of the educational supervisor. And that is front-loaded, that's done quite early on. All apprenticeship standards are now subject to endpoint assessment. Most of these endpoint assessments are facilitated at the pharmacy. We would request that you support the learner and ourselves in ensuring that the endpoint assessment can occur there. Again, as we go through the program, all the requirements would be explained to you. And then there's the general additional support. We want to produce world-class learners. I set this company up because I'm at the back end of my career. That white piece of paper that I got that's on my wall that tells me I'm a pharmacist changed my life. I would like to leave pharmacy in a better position than when I came into it. Based on the comments that I made at the start, that's quite a challenge. However, I think by getting an energetic, dynamic workforce that doesn't know where the ceilings are, we have a great chance. I will supply the best tutors, all pharmacy driven. We just need your support in ensuring that A, apprenticeship is right for you, and B, that our learner will be looked after. And when I say our learner will be looked after, your apprentice, your employee will be looked after. We wouldn't want an apprentice to be in a position when they weren't supervised. We wouldn't want an apprentice to be in a position where they were a key holder, for example, or left alone. All of this we would cover in our tripartite agreement. Could I have the next slide, please? So if I hand back over to Hino in terms of the next steps.
Yeah, so this is just a screenshot of where you can find the forms on our MPA website. You can type in level 2 and level 3 pharmacy apprenticeships at the top, and you'll see this page where you should be able to find the webinar on demand. You'll find information about the apprenticeships and the brochure as well. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the brochure and a link to complete the form, which you can see just there. So if you are interested in hiring an apprentice, please fill out that form, and you'll be able to have your questions answered now by Amajit, Jamie and Sarah. So please feel free to make use of this opportunity. You've got them all here. And once again, thanks for that, Amajit. That was very informative, and your passion shows very, very well. So,
oh, thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions coming through? Please use this opportunity to feel free to ask any questions you have, or maybe discuss any doubts that you might have.
Feels like everyone's been very quiet tonight. I guess a good way to start would be to see if we could all raise our hand who has an apprenticeship, who has an apprentice.
I see a couple of people just coming through now. So
yeah.
Should we take these couple of questions?
Sure.
So Nicola's asked, can you enroll a current dispenser on tech course as an apprentice? Absolutely, yeah. So it's not just new recruits to the business. Absolutely, we can upskill existing staff as well onto the level 3 course. Again, it's just making sure they've met those entry requirements. If they haven't met the entry requirements, we can support to upskill the learner if required. Hopefully, Nicola, that answers your question. Paresh has asked, how much of my time is needed on a weekly basis? So from an educational supervisor's perspective, we ask for a minimum of a quarterly progress review, which is about an hour. So that's once a quarter. On a weekly basis, it is very much supporting that apprentice in the workplace, supporting with usual training development that you would do in the workplace. Actually, your time with the apprentice isn't needed on a weekly basis, should we say. It's just generally that training and development during the day-to-day and the usual working environment. I don't know, Amajit, Sarah, if you want to add anything to that, or hopefully that answers your question.
I was going to say as well that it's the minimum of 30 hours a week. I'm not sure if that's what the question was asking, but yeah, a minimum of 30 hours a week is required for the apprenticeship programme.
Okay, brilliant. And does the level 2 learner need to have done a counter assistant course? So just to reiterate that piece, our course includes the counter assistant course within it. If the learner has already done the counter assistant course, we would replace that with learning that the learner requires opposed to the counter assistant. So we wouldn't duplicate learning, but they don't need to do the course to be able to admit onto the course. There's no formal entry requirements at level 2. I'm hoping that answers your question. So no formal requirement to do the counter assistant piece, and there's no formal entry requirements. Hayley's asked a question. Are there any restrictions to becoming an apprentice? Example, a member of staff already has a degree, Indian qualified pharmacist. So Hayley, that's looked at on an individual basis. We would do an initial skill scan with the learner to look at their existing knowledge, skills and behaviours. So it might be that learner has significant knowledge and skills, which means the course might not be appropriate for them. It might mean that there's a reduction in the duration of the course. It might be, we've had in the past previous examples where we've liaised with the GPHC to see if the course could be reduced, depending on the qualification in question. There isn't a barrier there, but it is looked at on an individual basis, and we would seek to understand that. So it's definitely not a no, but we'd need to look at it on an individual basis to see what the pre-existing qualifications were. Thank you. Hopefully that answers your question. I don't know, Sarah, did you want to take, or Amajit, did you want to take the next one? Are there any maximum age restrictions for upskilling staff and what times of day are the training sessions? I don't know, Sarah, did you want to answer at least the first piece of that?
Yeah, so as Amajit explained, we do the training courses for the level 2 every other week, so every 2 weeks for 2 hours, and that is different. So sometimes it could be 10 till 12, and you would have it scheduled, and it'll be that time every other week. So it wouldn't be different for, you know, the first session they attend, and then different. It would be set, and you would know that prior to signing up to the apprenticeship program as well. But no, there are no age restrictions on, apart from being over the age of 16, there are no age restrictions to doing the apprenticeship program.
Fantastic, thank you.
Nicola, to answer Nicola's question, employer needs assessment. A lot of us in pharmacy have businesses that are completely different. You go where the opportunity is. If you have a business that is your standard 40-hour or 53-hour really community pharmacy, and you have another one that's online, we have employers that match that brief at the moment. It's done on an individual branch need. So if there was no need for that learner to do an OTC course, we wouldn't do an OTC course, we would perhaps look at something else.
Just to add on additionally to that, the dispensing element of the course is mandatory. So there would need to be a requirement for learners to have access to that facility and not just be a counter assistant. That being said, there are, you know, as Amajit said, contextualized examples and ways of working that we can support you to best fit the needs of the business and the needs of the learner. Super, I think that's the questions that we've got through. I don't know if there's any further from anybody.
It looks like that's it. If you do have any burning questions, now's your chance to shout. Well, thank you all very much for joining. We know how precious your evenings are, as Amajit has said. And once again, thanks to Amajit, Jamie and Sarah for answering the questions. So if you are interested in hiring an apprentice, please go onto the NPA website. If you have any further questions, then do not hesitate to get in touch. But as you can see, it's an excellent opportunity. So we do really hope that you do take this chance. Anything anyone that would like to add? Amajit, Jamie, Sarah?
No, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. There's a lot of pressure on us, and to give up your valuable time when you're at home with your families is highly commendable. I'm exceptionally grateful.
Brilliant. Hopefully we can wrap up and you can go ahead and have your dinners.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.